I wanted to cover something called code style. So I've seen quite a bit of code in my time, and I've seen code that's kind of all over the map. And there's clean code, and there's code that's not clean. Coding style is pretty important to make things really clean and to adhere to a set of universal standards, because the code that you write, someone else is going to read. And that code that they write, they might be here in Chicago, they might be in California, they might be in Canada, they might be in Pakistan, they might be in Russia or China or something like that. And everyone who writes code kind of adheres to more or less the same standards. And there's agreed upon standards from the entire community of what is best practices. So what I've kind of done here is I have a fully working program, code on the left-hand side and the specs here on the right-hand side, but the code is super, super messy. So I need to just kind of figure this out. So I want to go through this super unorganized code here on the left-hand side, go line by line and see what looks good and what doesn't look good. So when I'm looking here on the left-hand side, I can tell immediately this is very poorly written code. It might work, it might not work, who knows? And that's the point. I can't read anything. All the indentation is incorrect. I don't know if this solved is part of the initialize method or where this raise is. I don't know anything that's going on here. There's comments everywhere. I'm not sure what's really going on here. So I'm going to change a few things just to make this work. When I run the specs and all the specs are correct, so you can see there's just a whole bunch of failures going on right now. So if I had to just go one by one, there's an uninitialized constant called guessing game. So you can kind of see let game equal this guessing game. Right away, I kind of noticed that something is broken because this is not named the same thing as the class. So that's probably one of the first things. Yep.
This is a really specific thing that I need to know. Do you virtually always name your module file the same thing as your class name, to the T?
Yes.
But you keep it lowercase?
Yes. Yep. So when I run this spec one more time, now I have 5 examples and 0 failures. So that one tiny little thing of me not really paying attention to coding style resulted in everything else being broken. Now that since I have a good place to start, and since I know that these tests are going to pass 100% of the time, I can close this out and reliably change everything inside of here and then as long as the tests pass, I'm still good to go. I like the first line, guessing game, capital G again. I have seen some people writing class names like this, and also method names like that and that. This is specific for JavaScript. It's not for Ruby. Inside of Ruby, we're going to do camel case for everything, which means, snake case for everything, which means that every single new word has an underscore and everything is lowercase for method names. So right here, it looks like I have valid numbers equals 1 to 100 2a. Store the valid numbers in an array. This is called a constant. Constants are basically things that you declare one time and they cannot change. So because it's constant, the way that they write it is going to be all uppercase with snake case in the middle. So I know right away I can just change this to numbers, 1 to 100 2a, and let's run the test just to make sure that that small little line did not break anything. All right, everything is broken. Answer must be between 1 and 100, so let's take a look. Valid numbers. Looks like I've called valid numbers in other places and they were marked incorrectly. Run the test one more time. Everything passes. We can move on to the next thing. Def initialize, God, what is that? That is terrible. I think what they're trying to get with here is that they're passing in an answer. And at answer equals answer. This is probably in the wrong place. Validate input. Raise. Answer must be between 1 and 100 unless the valid numbers include the answer. Okay? Let's see if all of my specs still pass. I'm still good, and I've already started to clean up things a little bit. With this method that I've got over here, the indentation is incorrect because you can kind of see since this guess is nested within the class, it's currently at the same level as the class. This doesn't really matter in real life. It's just like in terms of the execution of the code, but it's just the way that I read it is hard. Because I was like, is this outside of the class? Is this inside the class? Go back over here. This is supposed to be touching. These are also supposed to be touching. I think that's okay. Indentation's incorrect. This one's there. This one is incorrect. There. 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 You can kind of see it's starting to look a little bit more like an actual program the whole time. Let's run this code to make sure that everything runs. Everything is good. 5 examples, 0 failures. Can we refactor anything inside of here? It looks like I have a return high. I have a low over here. Probably don't need that return. Let's see if this works. Looks good to me. This one, same thing. Indentation's a little bit messy, so I'm going to move this in. And this solved over here. I can probably make this a reader, but you can kind of see this is kind of the example of like what looks like more or less clean code. You know, indentation looks good. There's a lot of comments, but that's okay. Indentation looks good. There's no extra spacing or anything like that. You can compare this. Would you rather read this thing here on the left, or would you prefer to read, let me grab it. This thing here on the right. There's one that's much easier to read and to try to debug, and then there's one that's much more difficult to read. This one I can see exactly, this is where def starts and this is where it ends. Everything inside of it is nested within here. This one I have no idea what's going on. Same thing with this guess number. You can see all of this initialized and the guess and solved is all nested within the class compared to here where you don't know where anything is. So for all of the code that we're going to be running from here on out, let me delete everything. We're going to be running it through something called Rubocop. It's kind of play on words for Robocop. In fact, you can kind of see on here. It's called a Ruby Static Code Analyzer. Yeah, Rubocop. He basically has the community has essentially added 7,000 plus commits to say like these are the things that we want to test for. These are the extra things that we want to make sure that your code adheres to. Every single language has a linter of some sort. It's basically like I'm going to catch all the garbage, kind of like lint. So I know for JavaScript, they have ESLint. For Ruby, it's going to be Rubocop. For Python, there's probably something for them. But every single language that I know of has a linter to make sure that your code adheres to standards. And so we're going to be running Rubocop against our code at all times before we start submitting. We'll get to that in just a second, but I'm going to create something called inheritance.rb, and I'm going to open up inheritance.rb in Sublime. I want to talk about this concept of inheritance. When people hear the word inheritance, what do you think of right away?
You're getting something from somebody else.
Yeah, you're getting something from somebody else. That's very true. Usually it refers to like money, honestly, and property and things like that in our world. What else do people think of when you think of inheritance?
Family.
Family. There's things that you inherit from your family, right? It's not only monetary things, but it's also like, to some extent, how tall you are is a result of your inheritance in your genetics. Your eye color, skin color, those are things that you inherit from other people. What else? Let's get one more thing. Inheritance, anything.
Yes, personality. Personality
to an extent? Yeah, that's pretty true. So let me rename this real quick. Inheritance. So inheritance is a relationship between two things, right? It's between you and your parents, you and your family, and you get something, whether that be sometimes be the monetary things at the end of life, or like there are features that you all get. So if you think of your relationship with your parents, most of your features are inherited from them. If not all your features are inherited from them. You have race, an eye color, hair color, weight, height to a certain extent. So there's things that everyone like grabs from their parents. You inherit that stuff from your parents. But at the same time, you're also very different from them. You have new features. You can do things that are different from what they can do. Like right now, you're learning how to program, and then afterwards, they're going to ask you to fix all their computers. Those are not necessarily the same things, but there's abilities that you have that they do not. There are traits that you have that they do not, but there's a lot that you take down from them. Similarly, in coding, let's say that we have two classes. Let's say we have a child and a parent class. So let's just say, okay, so you have two classes. I'm going to do dog.rb, and then I'm going to have golden retriever.rb. I have two classes. One of these is the parent, and one of these is the child. Which one is which?
Dog is parent.
The dog is the parent, right? Because a golden retriever is a child of dog. It comes from the whatever genus of, I don't know, whatever. Higher up, every single golden retriever is a dog, but not every single dog is a golden retriever, right? A child class has the ability to inherit all the features of the parent class, and any number of the methods from the parent class can be overwritten inside of the child class. So you can kind of think of this as like a golden retriever is a dog. A dog is a golden retriever. That doesn't work the other way around. So that's how you can determine the parent and child relationship. Let's do some inheritance. So we'll create a class called dog. And yeah, let's try this out. So a dog, every single dog has the ability to do certain things. What is that? What are some of those things that we talked about? Just bark, woof, and eat, chomp. Every single dog has the ability to do these two things. So because I've written it inside of one class, I actually don't need to write it inside of my golden retriever class. So let's create a dog real quick. D equals dog.new, and I'm going to tell the dog to bark, and I'm going to tell the dog to eat. When I run Ruby cd into inheritance, I did not save it in the right place. Let's actually just move some stuff using this. If I list out everything here, I want to move inheritance.rb. Actually, I want to remove inheritance.rb. So I'm going to remove inheritance.rb. And I want to move dog and golden retriever from where it exists on the desktop inside of this inheritance folder. How do I move those things?
In the file name directory.
And then same thing with golden retriever. Oops. When I list out everything again, you can see that they have indeed moved. Let's change into inheritance, list out everything. There's my dog and my golden retriever. So when I run the dog class, it's going to print out woof and chomp. Ruby dog.rb, woof and chomp. Now on the right-hand side, I have a class called golden retriever, America's dog. This golden retriever is an instance of dog. Like the dog is the parent and this is the child. Because I've written everything inside of dog and I can inherit that into golden retriever, I actually don't need to call anything. G equals golden retriever.new, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. With P instead of D dot, I'm going to do G dot. Do you think this works just right off the bat?
No.
No. Okay. So I have a class, but it's not inheriting from anything. So the inheritance symbol is just less than dog. That's all it is. Before I just had a regular class, it wasn't inheriting from anything. It didn't take any attributes of any parent. So when I run this at this point, I just run Ruby golden retriever. It just doesn't do anything because there's no method called bark and eat inside of the golden retriever class. When I add this inherit, this less than dog sign right here, what happens is I'm inheriting all of the methods from the dog class. So instead of typing it twice from inside of here and inside of the dog, the golden retriever, I just need to inherit from dog, and I have the ability to bark and to eat. So when I run this again, I require relative dog. Thank you. Good catch. What's that? I don't need to export. That's interesting. I'm not sure. Oh, I'm in the wrong. Oops, I'm altering. Oops. There's nothing inside of here. I was altering the golden retriever thing that was on the desktop originally. Let's just grab that. Close this. Close everything just to make sure I was running the wrong file. Dog on the left, golden retriever on the right. Require relative of dog, inherits from dog. Let's see if this works. Woof, chomp, and then woof, chomp. When I inherit from dog, I also bring in all of this garbage over here, so I need to comment this out.
So you don't have to export?
I don't need to export.
It'll get it?
It'll get it regardless, yeah. Ruby is strange in that sense, where it's nice because you don't have to export. Yeah, so when we require relative of dog, we're saying that we need to import the dog from where it exists here and bring it inside this file in order to use this capital D dog on line 3. The concept of exports is, in order to import something, you also have to export something. So inside of JavaScript, there's something called export default of dog. So you would take the dog and say, like, I can use this outside of my class. I'm explicitly declaring it. Ruby, you don't need to do that. But in almost every other language, including Python, you do need to do that. It's kind of annoying. Yep.
You probably, this is maybe deviating a little bit, and maybe I should ask you one-on-one, but what is the require relative and require? I noticed there's a distinction between the two, and what instance would you use that?
Sure, so that's a great question.
Sure what that,
Great question. So the question was, what is the difference between require relative and require? So when I do require, whatever comes afterwards is a library that's built into Ruby. So like CSV, time, datetime, math, like there's all of these different libraries that are built into the Ruby language that if you're going to be using like time.new or something, or time.now inside of here, you need to do that require time. That's built into every single, it's not one file. It's a library that's available to every Ruby file. Require relative is for a file. Like specifically the one that I wrote here. So relative to where I am right now, this golden retriever, there's a file called dog that I need to bring inside of here. That's what the require relative is.
Is the require the same for, sorry.
Okay.
Is the require the same for gems that you bring into Ruby?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so this is fairly simple. I declare some methods that every single dog can do. And on the right side, I have a golden retriever, which is a dog. It's a child of dog. And once I inherit, I have the ability to do everything that this dog can do. What can all dogs do that golden retrievers are really bad at? Sure. Roar. Okay. So let's pretend, for the sake of argument, every single dog has the ability to hunt, right? And they're very aggressive. They're going to roar and they're going to hunt things. A golden retriever, on the other hand, does not hunt. Like that is like I don't know. They don't really attack people. They don't really do anything. They're just really cute. So when I can overwrite things from the parent class inside of the child, but I cannot go the other way around. So the golden retriever inherits everything from the dog. As of right now, the golden retriever, when it hunts, it roars. But that's because it inherited everything from this class called dog. In reality, the golden retriever, when it hunts, is more like, I don't know, cute. Because I've overwritten it in the child class, even though I've inherited it, you can kind of see I go woof, chomp, and then sit still. I'm overwriting it inside the child because that's something that's different, right? So for my parents, they had specific language skills that they have. They are able to, they're bilingual. They can speak Chinese and they can speak English. Me, on the other hand, I suck at Chinese, so my language skills are different. I've overwritten that to just be English and coding languages, right? Similarly here, all dogs can hunt and they can go roar, but this golden retriever cannot hunt and roar. It can just sit still. It's not able to do that particular type of thing. The last thing that you'll probably need to know about inheritance is this concept of super. So there are certain things that there are certain methods, let's just say, every dog is able to also grow up, right? Grow. Tiny puppy. I don't know. So it starts off as a tiny puppy, right? Let's say it starts as a tiny puppy and then it grows up. Every single dog starts as a puppy, right? But certain dogs grow up faster than other dogs. So when I do def grow, I can still do I can still start with tiny puppy by typing super. And what super does is saying like, okay, I'm gonna look up one level into dog and find whatever the value of grow is, which is going to be tiny puppy for now. And then I'm just going to grow into huge dog. There's not much in between. It starts as a tiny puppy and all of a sudden the puppy is enormous. So similarly, let's just dump it down here. So def pg.grow. And if this works as I expect it to start with tiny puppy and then huge dog.
So super just is like the value.
Yes, super is a value that just goes up one level. Let's see if this works. Tiny puppy, huge dog, no. Try it one more time. Tiny puppy, huge dog. So again, every single dog has the ability to grow. It starts off as a tiny puppy, and that's what it does right over here. It's just a tiny puppy. Every single dog, every single breed of dog, when it inherits from dog, when it grows, it's going to print out this string called tiny puppy. A golden retriever, there's many different dogs that grow at different paces. A golden retriever starts as a tiny puppy and then immediately becomes a huge dog. There's not much time in between it. Like it's maybe 2 or 3 months before it becomes a huge dog. So that's what I've done here. So I said def grow. I still want to respect the parent class. I still want to bring in tiny puppy in. So I'm just going to say super, which is going to grab this value and just throw it inside of here. And then it's going to become a huge dog. If I were to create let's say if I were to create give me a tiny dog. What's that? Okay. Is that how you say? I don't care. .rb. You save it inside of here. Class require relative of dog. Class to less than dog. Def grow super tiny dog. So I have the dog, it's the parent class, and I have 2 children. One's a golden retriever, one's a Shih Tzu. Shih Tzu is still able to bark, eat, and hunt. Not really. And it's able to grow as well. But the growing for this Shih Tzu is a little bit different. Again, every single thing starts as a tiny puppy. So I can start by saying, I'm not going to overwrite the entire method. I still want that to execute first. Everything is going to start as a tiny puppy. So I'm going to say super. Super says I'm going to look up one level to my parent. Whatever the value is at this particular point, I'm going to copy and paste it over here. But then for a golden retriever, when it grows, it starts as a tiny puppy and then it becomes a huge dog. When the Shih Tzu grows, it starts as a tiny puppy and then it stays a tiny adult. Let's just see this work, and then I'll get to that question. Ruby shih-tzu.rb. It just says tiny adult. What went wrong? What did I do? Let me try the golden retriever. I did something. Huge dog. It's because I didn't put a P in the front. Tiny puppy, huge dog. And then same thing for the Shih Tzu, tiny puppy, tiny adult. I'm basically just grabbing something from the parent and then bringing that in, executing that first, and then doing something else. I got to Sean first.
Is there some sort of mixing ability?
I was going to do that tomorrow.
Inside the text editor, this is something just so I can make the connection in my own brain. So your classes are uppercase, but then you would refer to them in a different file or window. Let's see. So your classes are uppercase, but you can refer to them in your require relative at the top. You can refer to them in its lowercase form, but it's still referring to the class dom.
So the require relative dog, that's just an actual file.
It's the name of the file.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you see how this is lowercase dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean.
One thing that is just I am a little surprised by is that it will print the original in super and then it'll print the following line. Like
That's because I have a P escrow over here.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So this last little bit, and then we will get started with today's work. I've written 3 classes. We talked a little bit about inheritance. So when you see this less than sign, you know that there's some stuff that's being inherited from a parent. Let's run RuboCop against all of this because there's probably some issues. Let's just mess everything up on purpose. And let's run RuboCop against this entire directory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do gem install RuboCop. It's going to reach out to Ruby gems, install it inside of my machine. While we're waiting for this, let's look at what we've got for today. Today is Wednesday, meaning that it is a solo day, pairing optional. If you want to pair, ask your partner, ask somebody, but don't be offended if they say no. We only have, I think, 1 challenge for today. Yep, it's just schools. I'm creating an interface for schools. Now it's a little bit more involved because it's like object orientation, it's going to be reading and writing to CSVs, and it's going to be like a little bit of inheritance here and there. The idea is to create do you remember when we were kids and we went to the library, old school library software? And when we did things like, remember the old green and, old school library software? That's not it. Yes, there we go. You remember when we were younger and we were able to go to the library and check out books like this with like the green screens, and then you press 1 and then you press enter and then you look up by last name and it'll query some sort of a database, or in our case today, we're going to be doing it in a CSV file. We're going to be building that today from the command line inside of Ruby. The idea is basically we want to log in as a school administrator or as a student, and you can see different people's grades. You can change their grades. You can see all the different staff. If you're the administrator, you can create passwords and verify that the person has the correct password when they're coming in and out. So there's only one thing for today, and this might take a little bit of time. But essentially it's supposed to look like this. When I run Ruby School, welcome to Bayside High, enter your username and password. When you enter your password, it's going to come up as all stars. That's something that you have to write. And then you're going to have to check the username against the password to make sure that those 2 are the same thing. If they are the same thing, you show one screen. If it's not, you show another screen. Welcome, whatever. Your access level is principal. What would you like to do? List students, view grades, add grade, remove grade. You can number this if you want. You can just say, you can listen for list students or view grades or add grade. And then from there, there's a whole bunch of other things. It's as open-ended as you want it to be. And that's kind of the fun part, and also kind of like the difficult part as well. Only 1 challenge for today, so it is fairly intense. And if you haven't met with Josh yet, he will be coming in and just wiping out everybody else in this afternoon to review everything with you. Let's see if this is finished installing, and we can run RuboCop. All right. So I run gem install RuboCop, and I just run RuboCop against inside of this folder. So it knows to read every single thing inside of here. And it says, I inspected 3 files. I found 12 offenses, and I need you to fix each one of those. So number 1, it says, missing top level class documentation comment. I don't know what that is, so I would Google this one and then basically see what is the rule that they want me to follow and why did they want me to do that. But there's a few things that are easy. It says on line 7, there is use 2 spaces, not 14 spaces for indentation. That's something simple that I can fix. So I have 14 spaces, I can just do 2. And we can kind of see, before we had 12 offenses. If I fix one of them, Rubocop again, I have three files, 11. And I would just go line by line, just fix every single thing until it's pleased with me. For some of them, you can probably just ignore, like I have no idea what style documentation is. There's a final new line that's missing. You just add a new line at the very end of the file. Indentation's a lot, trailing white space, and all this type of stuff. So you can kind of go one by one and fix each individual one of them. If you want to cheat, which I highly do not recommend, because people, when you start writing code, actually, I'll just teach this anyway. When you start writing code and people look at it and they ask you what's wrong with it and you keep running this command over and over again, that won't help you if it's not there. There's something called Rubocop-A, which will fix everything for you automatically. 9 offenses corrected. So you can kind of see I changed a few things and then it moved a whole bunch of stuff back. Do not run this as much as you can. I know it's kind of like, here's cocaine. You can try it. You can try it and then never do it again. But yeah, I just want to show that these kinds of tools do exist. Any questions on anything? Covered a lot this morning.